Ethan Walker sat in his penthouse overlooking the glittering Chicago skyline, his life a portrait of success. As one of the most renowned financial investors in the country, he had built an empire worth billions. Everything about his world was meticulously curated: his tailored suits, his spotless penthouse, his perfectly aligned schedule. Yet, beneath the perfection was an unshakable emptiness, a loneliness that even the most luxurious surroundings couldn't mask. That evening, as he sorted through emails, his eyes froze on a subject line that felt like a ghost from his past. "We need to talk, Clara." For the first time in years, Ethan felt his composure slip. The calm, calculated world he had built for himself seemed to crack, letting uncertainty and a rush of old memories flood through. Clara, his ex-wife, hadn't reached out since the day she walked away from their marriage 5 years ago. The message was short, direct, and offered no explanation, only a request to meet. Ethan's heart raced as questions flooded his mind. What could she possibly want after all this time? Ethan Walker sat frozen in his silent penthouse as memories from the past came rushing back. 5 years ago, he thought he had everything: a celebrated career and a marriage to Clara, the woman he had once loved with all his heart. Clara was a free-spirited artist, drawn to simplicity and brimming with passion for life. She was the exact opposite of Ethan, whose world revolved around numbers and the unrelenting demands of his job. Their life together began to crumble when Ethan prioritized his work above all else, missing countless important moments in their marriage. Clara had pleaded with him to spend more time with her, but he dismissed her concerns with vague promises. The breaking point came during a heated argument when Clara confessed she felt like a shadow in his life. Ultimately, she walked away, leaving behind a trail of disappointment and pain that Ethan chose to bury beneath his ambitions. Now, staring at Clara's message, a wave of confusion and unease washed over him. What could she possibly want after all this time? Was this a chance to make amends, or just a painful reminder of mistakes that couldn't be undone? After moments of hesitation, Ethan decided to reply. Clara suggested meeting at a small cafe nestled in an artist's neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. Taking a deep breath, Ethan prepared himself for the conversation that might alter the course of his life forever. Ethan stepped into the small cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. The air was warm with the comforting aroma of roasted coffee and freshly baked pastries. He quickly spotted Clara seated by the window, her figure framed by the soft afternoon light. She was still as beautiful as he remembered, but her face bore the weariness of time and something deeper. Yet her eyes remained as strong and piercing as ever, and it sent a pang through Ethan's chest. "Thank you for coming," Clara began, her voice steady but tinged with hesitation. Ethan sat across from her, trying to maintain composure though his heart was racing. "What's going on, Clara? Why did you want to meet?" he asked, his voice lined with concern. Clara paused for a moment, as if gathering the strength to say what needed to be said. "Ethan," she began, her gaze meeting his, "after we divorced, I found out I was pregnant." The words hit Ethan like a thunderclap, rendering him momentarily speechless. His mind reeled, his surroundings fading into a blur. "What are you saying?" he finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. "Her name is Lily," Clara continued, her voice soft yet resolute. "She's 4 years old now, Ethan, and she has your blue eyes." A flood of emotions surged through Ethan. Shock, regret, a sense of overwhelming responsibility. But Clara wasn't finished. "I needed to tell you this because I don't have much time left." She lowered her gaze, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her coffee cup. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, his voice heavy with worry. "I've been diagnosed with cancer," Clara said, her words quiet but piercing. "The treatments are ongoing, but it's going to be a long battle. I can't do this alone. I need you to take care of Lily if I can't." Ethan felt as though his world had been turned upside down. Sitting before him was the woman he once loved, burdened with pain and fear, and now he had a daughter, a living, breathing extension of himself that he had never known. Clenching his fists, Ethan's resolve hardened. He knew his life was about to change forever, and he couldn't turn away from it. Ethan stood in front of the worn wooden door of the small apartment where Clara and Lily lived. His heart pounded in his chest, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation coursing through him. He wasn't sure what to expect. He had never been a father, and the revelation of Lily's existence had shaken him to his core. When the door opened, Clara greeted him with a faint smile. "Come in," she said, stepping aside to let him in. The apartment was small but cozy, filled with warmth. Childlike drawings were pinned to the walls, and in the corner stood a small easel covered in watercolor splashes, a sign of Lily's creative world. Ethan's eyes quickly found Lily, sitting cross-legged on a rug, engrossed in assembling a puzzle. For a moment he froze, his breath catching as he took her in. She had soft brown hair and striking blue eyes. His eyes. It was like looking at a younger version of himself, but with a warmth and innocence that made his heart ache. "Lily?" Clara called gently, prompting the little girl to look up. "This is Ethan. He's your dad." Lily's gaze shifted to Ethan, her expression wary and uncertain. "Hi, Lily," Ethan said softly, his voice carefully measured. "I'm so happy to meet you." Lily didn't respond, her eyes lingering on him for a moment before she returned to her puzzle. Ethan felt a pang of disappointment, but reminded himself that she needed time. Determined, he sat down on the rug near her, trying to ease the tension. "What are you building there? Can I help?" he asked, picking up a small puzzle piece with a gentle smile. At first, Lily didn't react, but as Ethan quietly worked alongside her, she began to relax. "It's a castle," Lily said softly, her voice barely audible. "It's a beautiful castle," Ethan replied, feeling a small sense of relief at her response. As time passed, Lily began to giggle when Ethan intentionally placed puzzle pieces in the wrong spots, pretending to be clueless. Her laughter was a melody Ethan hadn't known he needed. From across the room, Clara watched the scene unfold, her eyes glimmering with hope. In that moment, Ethan realized Lily wasn't just his responsibility. She was his chance. A chance to rewrite the mistakes of his past and embrace a new kind of love, one he had never known before. The days that followed became the most challenging of Ethan's life. With his packed schedule and the relentless demands of work, he had never envisioned a time when he would need to juggle family and career. But now he had no choice. Clara needed him, and so did Lily. Ethan's financial firm was at a critical juncture with a multi-billion-dollar deal on the line. His team bombarded him with calls, seeking approvals and requesting his presence in high-stakes strategy meetings. But for the first time, Ethan began to restructure his priorities. He made sure to carve out time to come home early, help Lily with her homework, and sit by Clara's side when she was too exhausted from her chemotherapy sessions. Clara's health was deteriorating, and Ethan couldn't help but feel a gnawing worry in his chest. To ensure she had the care she needed, he hired a private nurse. Clara's elderly neighbor, a kind-hearted woman, also stepped in to help watch Lily whenever Ethan had to rush to the office unexpectedly. One evening, Ethan was reading Lily a bedtime story. She looked up at him with her big, innocent blue eyes and asked, "Will you always be here, Daddy?" The simplicity of her question carried an emotional weight that hit Ethan like a tidal wave. "I'll always be here, Lily, I promise," he said, his voice steady but laced with deep emotion. Though the challenges were immense, Ethan felt himself changing. Moments like Lily wrapping her small arms around him, or Clara's faint smile, even in her weakest state, reminded Ethan that family wasn't a burden, it was the most precious thing he had ever known. During a critical strategy meeting one afternoon, as his colleagues debated the final steps of the deal, Ethan raised his head and said, "We'll close this deal, but not by sacrificing everything else. Balance is the key." It was a moment of clarity, one that mirrored his personal life. Just like in business, balance was what made everything whole. Clara's surgery took place on a drizzly morning, the soft rain outside matching the somber yet hopeful atmosphere in the hospital. Ethan sat in the waiting area, his nerves on edge, gripping a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The hours stretched endlessly, each minute heavier than the last. Lily sat beside him, clutching a drawing she had made the night before. It was a picture of their family, Ethan, Clara, and herself, all holding hands in a bright, colorful garden. Handing the drawing to Ethan, she said softly, "This is our family, Daddy. I made it for Mommy so she can get better." Ethan stared at the picture, his chest tightening as tears welled in his eyes. In Lily's innocent world, they were still a family, a bond he had let slip away for far too long. When the surgeon finally emerged, looking exhausted but offering a reassuring smile, Ethan let out a deep breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The surgery had gone well. It wasn't the end of Clara's battle, but it was a promising start. As they entered Clara's room, Lily rushed to her mother's side, wrapping her small arms around her. Watching them, Ethan felt a profound realization take hold. The true value of life wasn't in work or achievements, but in these fleeting, beautiful moments of love and connection. Determined to prioritize what mattered most, Ethan made the decision to delegate more of his professional responsibilities to his trusted colleagues. His family needed him, and he wouldn't let them down again. Months after Clara's surgery, the atmosphere in their small apartment felt warmer than ever. Clara, though still in recovery, had begun regaining her strength. She smiled more, spent time playing with Lily, and even started painting again, something she thought she might never do. Lily, now completely comfortable with Ethan, no longer hesitated to show her affection. She would wait by the door every evening, excited to share stories about her day at school. Most evenings, the three of them would sit together on the couch, reading books or watching Lily's favorite animated movies. Ethan, having stepped back from his demanding work schedule, learned to savor the simple yet meaningful moments with his family. He was no longer the man ruled by his career, but a father, a companion, and a truly present figure in their lives. That morning, the three of them took a walk in the park near their home. Lily ran ahead, clutching a small ball, while Ethan and Clara strolled behind. Clara looked at him and softly said, "Thank you, Ethan, for coming back." Ethan simply smiled, squeezing her hand as he felt the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter filled with love, forgiveness, and hope. The months they spent together passed like a gentle breeze, filled with moments of love and healing. Ethan didn't just pour his heart into loving Lily, he also cared for Clara with a level of devotion she had never seen before. He often prepared small meals for her when she felt tired, ensured she took her medication on time, and added a dash of humor to brighten even the hardest days. "Do you think this soup would taste better if I added sugar?" Ethan asked one evening, carrying a steaming bowl into the living room. Clara chuckled, though weakly. "Ethan, it's soup, not tea." He winked, replying, "Guess I'll save the sugar for the tea then." These small, light-hearted moments made everything feel less heavy, reminding Clara that she wasn't alone in her fight. Lily was the source of many joyful moments as well. One afternoon, she dragged Ethan onto the couch, holding a sketch pad in her tiny hands. "Daddy, I'm going to draw you, but you have to stay still, no moving," she ordered. When Ethan shifted slightly, Lily frowned and scolded. "Daddy, do you even know what stay still means?" Laughing, Ethan replied, "Guess you'll have to teach me." One evening after dinner, Ethan knelt down in front of Clara. In his hand was a small, sparkling ring. Simple, yet stunning. "Clara," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I lost you once because of my foolish mistakes. But now, I know nothing matters more than family. I want to start over. Will you marry me again?" Tears welled in Clara's eyes as she looked at Ethan, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Yes, Ethan, I will." For a moment, it felt as though time had stopped, the weight of their past mistakes lifting, replaced by hope and love. Lily jumped up, cheering, "So we'll all be together forever now." Clara pulled Ethan into a gentle embrace, her tears falling freely as she murmured, "I never thought we'd get here. Thank you for not giving up on us." The next day, Ethan brought Clara and Lily to his penthouse, but it was no longer a cold, sterile space. The sound of laughter, Lily's drawings pinned to the walls, and the warmth of their love had turned it into a true home. Their life together after moving in as a family was filled with laughter and joy. Ethan's penthouse, once a quiet and lonely space, now echoed with Lily's giggles and the warm chatter of family nights. Every corner of the home held memories. The living room walls were covered with Lily's colorful drawings, the kitchen was always filled with the smell of Clara's freshly baked cookies, and the dining table became the centerpiece for dinners full of stories and laughter. Ethan had transformed into a different man. He wasn't just a devoted father, but also Clara's unwavering partner. Weekends were reserved for family outings, and Lily's favorite place was the zoo, where she would squeal with delight at the giraffes stretching their long necks to nibble on leaves. One afternoon, the three of them sat on the living room floor, piecing together a giant puzzle. Lily burst into laughter as Ethan pretended to struggle with the simplest pieces. "Daddy, you're the silliest grown-up ever!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. Clara watched them, her smile glowing with contentment. Clara also began to find her footing professionally. With Ethan's encouragement, she started taking on small interior design projects again. Ethan never stopped reminding her of her talent, telling her that it hadn't faded but just needed time to re-emerge. In the evenings, the family had a tradition of sitting by the large window, gazing out at the city's twinkling lights. Lily would tell innocent, imaginative stories that sent both Ethan and Clara into fits of laughter. With Clara tucked under his arm, Ethan would often think to himself, this was what he had been missing all along, a true home. Their life wasn't perfect. Lily still had her stubborn moments, and Ethan occasionally forgot little things. But none of that mattered. The love they shared grew stronger with each passing day. For Ethan, Clara, and Lily, this wasn't just a house. It was a life filled with joy, love, and purpose. A life they had built together, one beautiful moment at a time.